Volkswagen GTI. GTI, of course, stands for Grandiose Turbo Influence. No, it doesn't. It stands for Great Turbo Inside. But now that most Volkswagens, and especially the Golfs, all have turbochargers, what makes the GTI so special? Well, I'm going to show you. Just look at the magnificent paintwork. This is a beautiful car. This is also the 2023 Volkswagen Golf GTI. Now the GTI, if you are up on your Volkswagen savvy-ness, you may recall that in the US market, the Golf wasn't around for a while. Instead, we had the Rabbit, which was basically identical to the Golf in the rest of the world, and everyone else called it the Golf, but we had the Rabbit. And when the Rabbit GTI came out, it was an amazing revelation, because who knew that what was basically an econobox could be modified to become a performance car slash econobox. And to this day, the Volkswagen Golf is very, very good at being a reasonably economical. Oh my God, the airplanes are here. A reasonably economical, fuel efficient to a stretch. It's not as good as some of the best out there, but it's still a very, very good machine in terms of being a commuter and a daily car. But the GTI part of it makes it so much better, because you have an enhancement to handling, you have an enhancement to the drivetrain, you have an enhancement of braking. Everything is more aimed towards being a performance car, or just at the very least a driver's car, something you can sink your teeth into if you really enjoy a nice curvy back road. GTIs have always been good at this, but what they're really good at these days, they combine all these attributes with, to be honest, some good road manners. I mean, it's actually a much more comfortable car than the original GTIs were. The suspension on some of the originals, in my opinion, was almost harsh over the rough stuff. But nowadays, this version of the GTI also has a very, let's just say, sophisticated side. It's quite reasonable in terms of its ride quality and everything else. It does not punish. It merely rewards to make sure that you enjoy the curvy nature of the road you're on without being punished for it by something that's kind of, dare I say it, crude. This is not a crude car at all. It's very, very sophisticated. And it runs on a very sophisticated 103.6 inch wheelbase. So it's stretched out pretty far. How's the interior room? We'll get to that later. It's as with all hatchbacks, it has a real practical side in that you can put the rear seats down and you have a lot of cargo space back there for moving your dorm room or your office, or just going on a trip with your significant other. It's a great car for that. But this version is different, because as you know, there is another performance version of the Golf which you have experienced. But this one is front-wheel drive only. And more than anything else, it reminds me of what Volkswagen has done as far as evolving their very, very popular compact cars. So without further ado, we'll get started under the hood, because the engine is the heart and soul of any performance car. And here we are under the hood. And once again, we find ourselves in that strange Volkswagen country where we don't have an engine cover, but it's definitely supposed to have one on this 2-liter turbocharged inline 4. So I put my my notes there. As you can see, there's a provision to attach a engine cover, but there's not one on it at the moment. So who knows? They're still redesigning. The last Volkswagen I had I think the new type of engine cover on it that was just beautiful because it was minimalist. So you could see everything that's going on. But with no cover at all, we can really see everything that's going on here. So first of all, here's our layout. Of course, transverse. 1, 2, 3, 4 cylinders right there. There's your oil filler for your 0W20 oil, a very common oil, which is always good to see. And then over here, here's our air box. Air goes back in to the turbocharging system, which you got your turbo and then you got your impeller that compresses the air that comes out of the exhaust. No, does it? Is that how it works? No. The way it actually works is the exhaust spins the turbo for you, and then the fresh air is what actually gets compressed. But during that process, it gets heated up, of course. So naturally, way down in here somewhere, we have an intercooling system. And then the intercooling system ultimately, in its life, comes up through here. There's one of the intakes right there. And into our composite air intake system directly into the cylinders. Because it does have a direct fuel injection, by the way. So it's fairly compact, this engine, because it's only 2 liters, which I think I say this again, 2 liters is getting to be big for small compact cars these days, because turbocharging is becoming so commonplace that they're using smaller and smaller engines. But there's the basics of this thing. And what are the basic numbers of this thing? Well, 241 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. And the torque is 273 pounds of feet at a lowly 1,600 RPM. So great low-end grunt on this thing. And it hits. It is the kind of turbocharger that hits. You really feel it in the mid to upper RPM ranges. And it takes off, and that's a lot of power. Now look at here. This is fun. Volkswagen seems justly proud of their belt. It says VWAG on there. Well, that's where your serpentine belt goes. All around there, powering various things like your alternator. I believe your power steering is electric, so there's no power steering pump there, but you do have your air conditioning compressor somewhere. And the engine is fairly well isolated in terms of vibration. It's not bad at all. Now over here, we have a huge, and I mean huge, this is a truck size 12-volt battery with the, got your koozie on here, and you know how important that koozie is. And here's your fuse box right here. I mean, everything is easily to hand, I would say. If you had to ever rip into this thing, it probably is not that bad if you can get most of the stuff taken off on it, because the basic block, the basic engine itself, you have real easy access to. So what is this mated to? Well, you have a choice. You can either get the 6-speed manual transmission or the 7-speed DSG, which of course is direct shift gearbox. And that's what we have on this test unit. And it's pretty slick. It's pretty slick, although I'd really like to drive this car with a 6-speed manual, just because I think a sporting car like this, a driver's car, should have a manual transmission, because you're so much more involved than you are with an automatic. However, this particular automatic also has the pedal shifters, are also known as the paddle shifters. Pedal shifters would be on the ground, I guess. So that you do have a degree of manual control with it. And it really is a very, very impressive gearbox. But like I said, I think for the enthusiast standpoint, you would much prefer to have the manual transmission. And we are front-wheel drive only here. We do not have an all-wheel drive system on this car. So there you go. That's your hooded thing, and who knows what's going to happen when they put a new cover on it. I still don't understand why it's taking them so long, but there's probably a story behind that. And from your buying perspective, it means absolutely nothing that it doesn't have a cover on it. If anything, it just makes the engine easier to access. With luck, You'll never need to access anything anyway because it's going to be reliable. You just change the oil, drive reasonably. Drive a GTI reasonably, sure. And it'll last and be reliable. So let us look onto it now, shall we? Now that's a nice swoopy wheel, don't you think? And look at the size of those brake calipers. They are enormous, with a real good sized disc too. So this has some serious stopping power, as you really want and need in your performance car. And what's the tire size here? Well, I'm just looking at this. We have 225 or 40 R18. So these be 18-inch wheels, which they still seem to have a fair amount of meat on them. So it's not going to be totally incommoded by your pothole situation wherever you live. These are the Pirelli P0. And P0 I always thought, man, it might be a run flat, but I don't think these are, simply because I know something about the rear hatch area, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute as we walk along our 103.6 inch wheelbase into our rear hatch. And this I love on the Golf family. You tilt this up to open it, right? But you know what else is in there? There is a camera underneath there somewhere, your backup camera. So it stays out of dirt's way by being underneath that latch until it is deployed. And when it's deployed, it's beautiful. So how great is that? So here's our cargo area. We have a 60/40 and a ski through and all kinds of neat stuff. So a lot of versatility in your cargo department. Pretty good size cargo area. You could put a full-size suitcase, probably one on top of it, and you'd be okay. But you can always, like I say, open up that rear to expand your cargo area. And underneath here we have inflate to 42 kilopascals or 60 psi. This would be your temporary spare tire. And we also seem to have a radio thing, or excuse me, a sound system thing in there, so to base your boost. Or boost your bass, depending on what you like. Now, over here we have our instruments for removing the tire, the wheel on the outside. And once again, we got that little thingy right here. And that's to pull the cover off to reveal what is a fairly normal looking lug on there. And this also has a locking lug, so there's your key for it right down there too. Nice place for that to fit. So that's all good. All designed to keep you on your way should you have a tire problem. And I appreciate that. And that beats the living crap out of having a flat repair kit, in my view. No power lift gate. Don't really need one. It's quite light. So there you go. Lots of braking power. Red caliper. Here's even on the back. Look at that. Look at that. Yes, sirree. Red caliper joy. I know that means performance. Actually, it all started with Brembo brakes, which have always had their red calipers. Well, not always. It either has a red caliper on a lot of motorcycles, it just says Brembo on the side of the caliper. But these, I don't know if they're actually Brembos. Regardless of what they are very, very substantial brakes. All for the joy of hustling down the road and stopping when a moose comes out of the brush and stands in front of your car. Ah, yes. How digital do you feel today? Well, here in the Volkswagen digital cockpit, we, like with other Volkswagens, we have a lot of choices about what we can do to our instrument cluster, which is, of course, a flat screen affair that, in this particular mode, it mimics our good old friends, the analog mechanical instruments. But these are not analog mechanical instruments. Oh, no. This is a digital display that we can play with all we want. Now, right now, what we have is what I would consider to be the traditional display. Speedometer on the right, tachometer on the left, and you have something very cool in the middle, and that's just your road sign that tells you what speed limit you are. And the closest available road sign in the navigation group is telling you it's 35 miles an hour limit. even though I'm on a small little road right here that if you go 35, you're going to knock a hole in the bottom of this car. But anyway, this is a real nice system because look here. Let's start playing with it. You prefer this particular display? On the left we have Boost, which I've selected. Well, let's go. Wait a minute. Before we do anything else, let's go back to where we was. I know it's just kind of a preview of the neat stuff I'm going to show you. Okay. Now, on the left side, if we want to adjust that, we have Boost right now. We can also have Start and Stop. You turn that on and off as far as your automatic engine stop when you stop in order to save fuel. We can have Settings, which we can go to. Let's go to Settings, shall we? And then we have Economy, Average Economy, Distance. You get the idea. You can just blast through all these things. And this is the display on the left side of your digital cockpit speedometer. Now let's go back up to, where were we? Assist systems. I really like having the Boost there, but you know what's really good to have there is your economy. Oops. So there we have economy, we have average economy, we have gear display, we have fuel tank, what is that, displacement? No, that's display. Assist systems, we don't really need that there, do we? No, we'll take that off. Temperatures, yes. Navigation, Audio, nah, we don't really need that. We need speed. We need what time it is good. Acceleration. Look at all the stuff. But anyway, that's what you can adjust on that side. Then we can go over to the right side, and we basically have the travel time and distance, navigation. See, it's the same thing. I can pick and choose. There's your G meter. This is a GTI after all, so you're going to be doing some cornering antics. And then we have a compass, and then we have destination info. Now, let's play with the G meter, shall we? Oh, yeah. Current values, highest values. Highest values. Wow, look at that. So there's our G meter. That kind of looks impressive, doesn't it? All right, so now we can adjust the right side. We can adjust the left side. Now, the overall package is really interesting. And I love this one here because there is our navigation, which I believe is, I don't know if this one messes with the Google land or not, but it is in 3D. It's very nice. Or we can go here, which is much different. This, I believe, will incorporate cruise control if you have it in it, to show you what your following distance is set at and that kind of thing. Or we can go here, which is like a digital speedometer, and you don't have any tach or anything else because that's not what I have it set on right now. If I go over here, I can go to, I can go to speed. Yeah. And speed will be there too. See, you're starting to get this. You're starting to figure out how you can really, basically, there we go. We can always pick and choose exactly what we want to have on either side. And we have it in this overall theme, which is the fancy GTI theme, which I really like. It also goes very nicely with the color. By the way, what is this official color? Do I have that available to us right now? No, it's cut off on my Monroney. I'm going to call it Autobahn Blue. Yeah, that's what I'll call it. And then we have this one here, which is my favorite, because it's the most traditional. And on the right side, I think I'll go back. Can I put the Boost up there? I think I should be able to. Well, it's slightly different on either side. I could go on for days, obviously, about this, but that's some of the fun you can have. Some of the fun you can have with your Volkswagen digital cockpit. Now, we move off to the right, and we have our main screen, which is not that big. It's smaller than a lot of them, but the fact of the matter is, it works quite well in this size interior. Oops. There is our navigation, and we have everything else under the sun here. Now, one of the things you're going to notice right off the bat, there are no knobs. So in order to get to different things, you have to, well, we have these four switches down here, and by the way, you just barely touch them, and there you go. And these are our driving modes right here. Eco, we do the eco. It doesn't seem to be, at the moment at least, involved with your display as far as your digital cockpit remains the same. Why are we suddenly looking at behind the camera even though we're in park? I don't know, I must have hit something. It's like you just barely touch this. There we go, menu, here's climate. Now if you want to adjust your climate, you got to go into that menu to do it. There are no knobs or anything out here in the periphery where you can hit it directly. Now, some people love that, some people will have a dislike for that, but it's something that some people hardly ever touch their climate controls, and other people mess with them all the time. So that's gonna be a lifestyle thing. Here we have our assist system, and this tells you what in the heck is that? You have this is the blue zircon shield that will stop you from. I have no idea what the heck that. Oh, that is probably the distance, your closing distance when it comes to your automatic collision thing, I would think. Huh. How does this work? Oh, there we go. No. As you can see, it's, ooh, let's go dark. Thank you. This goes very, it's very sensitive, this display, so you got to be careful. There we go. Now here's what we have, lane keeping, lane assist system. That's turned off at the moment. Lane change system, side assistant, that is turned on. But you have quite a few different things you can pick from. Emergency assist is on. I think that's if you have an accident. Airbag deployment, it will call for you. Call the authorities. Render aid, as it was. And here's our settings. I don't know what the heck that means. Can I move the car around? Well, you're going to have to get used to this just like I would if I had this car for more days than I have it. But that's the way Volkswagen does things now. They're becoming a knobless society. And you can think about that what you will. I personally, I feel like it's a little bit overkill on the touchscreen department. I like to have a few more regular knobs for certain functions. But nothing on this car. I mean, Volkswagen has decided they're going to go sort of like Volvo. They're going to go in their own direction with everything. They're going to change with everything. They're going to break new ground and decide to do different things than they've been doing it in the past, and that pretty much anybody else does it now. So, for example, let's take our transmission shifter. We do, of course, have our direct shift transmission. And one of the things I like about this initially is once you get used to it, it's pretty straightforward. But with so many Volkswagens, especially the Golf family, you have this little nub here. And there's your reverse, and there's your screen, and neutral, drive, and one more will get you S, won't it? Yes. And this is our paddle shifters are right up here. So, how do you get to S for sure? Does anyone know? Do I know? No, I think that's your basic. You hit it when you're driving, and that will then put you into a manual shift mode. And this being a snickety-snick type of transmission, and your park is up here completely separate, you push a button. The transmission being the rapid shifter thing that it is, it really, some manual selected modes on automatic transmissions are not as crisp as others. This one is very, I have used it, and it is very, very crisp as far as it's actually fun. I still think the 6-speed manual is the way to go with this car because it's a real driver's car. But if you have to have it automatic, this is not a bad automatic to deal with. All right, here's your cup holder region. Here is your 12-volter for plugging in your 12-volt accessories. We have 2 USB ports, that are of the C variety. And down here is your charging unit as far as your QI charger, and it works very, very well even with a telephone that has a case on it like that one. It charges beautifully. It's a great convenience to have. You have a very, very small center console. Woo! But it's big enough for most of the kind of stuff you usually carry that in. And over here, you do have a very, very good sized glove box. And oh, here's our full Monroney right here. What was that color of the with the it's Tiptronic is what they call the 7-speed direct shift gearbox. Manual mode is the Tiptronic. That's when you're Tiptronicking. You see. And this is Atlanta blue metallic. You know, well, yeah, the Atlantic does look a bit like that if you go out far enough. And what else? While we're over here, this is very interesting upholstery on our GTI because it is beautifully. There's our logo right there. It looks very Recaro-like. I don't believe Recaro's made these seats, but they do have excellent side bolsters, really, really good solid support. And interestingly enough, they're made out of a plaid cloth. These are cloth, and it's a very nice cloth. And it's there was a time when you would have upholstery that was cloth inside cars, and they would never heat it. You didn't have a heating option, which you do right here. You would never have a heating option on a cloth interior. I guess they thought it was going to light the thing on fire or something. But now you can have the best of both worlds, because as great as leather and artificial leather is, it doesn't breathe the way a nice fabric does. And so you have your heating and you have your comfort, all in your beautiful plaid upholstery. Now, all over the car, you're going to notice these little red touches, this red stitching and everything else. I do like that. There's little pointers here and there that do tell you that, yes, you are, in fact, driving a GTI. And that, of course, the main part about that is the suspension and the drivetrain and everything is what makes this car special, especially in the Golf family, which is getting smaller and smaller because everyone's going truck, SUV. So, but fortunately, Volkswagen is still making a nice, good economy car that is also really, really fun to drive. Here's some of your screenage that I was showing you. You're touching. Everything's nothing's like got a real solid feel to it. It's all very smooth and slick. And the weirdest thing about a lot of this stuff is you just literally barely touch it. You just slide on it. And see, now we have the radio on. I didn't mean to, but there it was, because it is so very sensitive. And I guess that means that it'll work fine if you have gloves on. But you got your heated steering wheel. What do you need gloves for? But it is really, really sensitive. So it's like anything else on something that's sensitive. You got to get used to it. So you're not always turning stuff on and off that you don't mean to be doing. Over to the left, here's our lighting center, which right now we have the low beams on automatic, and it thinks it's dark enough to have the low beams on. Let's put on them fog lights. There we go. Pew! Very clear display. But again, it's this flat, non-button thingy, touch sensitive, whatever, that they put on pretty much everything on this car. You do have a very nice moonroof up here with your shade right there. It's manual shade, but it's not a full shade. It doesn't completely ever tune out the outside. The outside is always with you as you drive. And so, given that, is there anything else I need to tell you that's unusual about this car? Well, this is nice. We have our nice steel-backed pedalature, we call it. And that's great to have. Now, what is this little symbol down here with the trees on it? Do I have on some kind of, what mode do I have it on? Eco, that's the eco mode symbol. That's the comfort symbol. That is the sporty symbol. And this is the custom symbol where you can adjust. And here we are. In the custom setting, you can pick what you want, what you don't want, and alter it to suit your engine sound, comfort, sport, or eco. Yeah, I want eco on my engine sound. It's more economical sounding. That will give you better mileage because it sounds like it's getting better mileage. I guess that's how it works. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to play with that because there's so much to play with on this car. Okay, back seat. First of all, it's a pretty decent sized door for larger individuals. And yes, I know. And in we go. And what do we have here? About 89 to 91% lowering on this particular vehicle. Now up here we have some very interesting pockets that are like, they look like they're literally designed to put your phone in. So you got your friends that like routinely carry their phone in their back pocket. They can just slide it out and put it right here when they're riding. It's cool. We have an absolutely enormous drive shaft tunnel because there is an all-wheel drive variant of the Golf that I'm sure this is probably built on the same basic chassis. So they have that there to run the drive shaft to the rear drivetrain. As you can see, if you have the front seat all the way back on the passenger side, there is no real room for a human being unless they have really, really skinny legs. And as Lyle Lovett would sing, skinny legs like I always wanted. The upholstery, again, is this wonderful plaid cloth fabric that's very, very comfortable. And it's a firm rear seat, but it is comfortable. And another thing is, it's a fairly narrow setup back here, so you're really going to get two people. I don't think you could very easily squeeze a third person in here, especially if you have the seats back much in the front, because you got Kareem Abdul. Hey, Kareem, how are you? It's good to see you. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the front. You're going to have no seat, no foot room for your third passenger. So this is a two-seat. This is a 2+2 situation. Our armrest is a very pleasant armrest. Pretty good height, I would call it. It's very, very, for the most part, it almost feels like it's a little low. Maybe it's just how I feel on the day. Up top, here we have our, look at that, dual. We have dual map lights, which I think is just the coolest thing ever. Looks like stage. And back here, behind there, look at this. Look at this here. This whole thing comes out like that. And there you have your trunk through for your skis or other long items if you don't want to put the seat completely down, which you can, of course, do in 60-40 increments to increase your cargo area. So, you know, dorm room moving, that sort of thing. So, all right, we don't have anything fancy like heated seats back here, but you do have two of your USB-Cs. So again, they've thought of everything. And as I have, oh, you got another one down here. So you put your tablet here and your phone here, and we got that on both sides. That's so nice because so many people, I mentioned this in some other car recently. Was it the Toyota Crown? I think it might have been. So many cars don't have anything on the driver's side as far as a pocket. Now, I don't know why that is. They always have one over on the passenger side. Driver's side, nothing. But this side, you get your full treatment here. You're equal. There is equality. There is a sense of justice with this. So a sense of justice is a beautiful thing. So not the world's, you got plenty of headroom, but not the world's roomiest rear seat. But then again, this is a compact car. So you can only expect so much out of it. And they've decided to give you a reasonable amount of cargo room back there too. So it's actually a pretty decent utilization of space considering it's a pretty tight machine. All right. Onward to other things and roadways and stuff. There is only so much one can do. What I'd really like to drive is this Volkswagen Golf. GTI with the 6-speed manual transmission, because I feel like that is really what this car wants. However, what I do have is the 7-speed direct shift gearbox, DSG. And I've never been real big on the DSGs, to tell you the truth. A lot of people think they're the greatest thing ever, and many have pointed out that you can actually get, depending on the car, there are DSGs out there that get better gas mileage than a manual focus thing. Manual focus? Where did that come from? I did a flyby. Than a manual shifting transmission, which was unheard of. Automatics always by their nature were not as efficient. When hooked to a gasoline engine, you could get so much better mileage if you use the manual transmission. But now we have a lot of these new automatics that are really, really well. One of the things they have is they have a lot of speeds. For example, this gearbox has one more speed than the manual variant. And speaking of which, are we front-wheel drive? Are we all-wheel drive? Well, with our GTI, we are front-wheel drive. Me and them rear wheels just kind of trailing along there. Trailing along for the ride. They do that. Whee! Handling is... GTIs, if you go all the way back to the original, in the United States, the Rabbit, when the GTI version came out, many people stood up and took notice, because they said, wow, this is already a really fun little car to drive. What if it had a firmer suspension, more performance, and all that great stuff, bigger brakes, and it was made into a performance model? What would that be like? Well, what it was like was very, very popular and very fun to drive. And over time, we no longer have the Rabbit. The Rabbit became the Golf, which is the Golf, which it had been everywhere else in the world, basically. And so they decided to go that route with it, and the result is a really, really fun car to drive. And what I've been so impressed with is the evolution of this car. They've also made it a little more refined. You're not being punished. Some of these cars, when they put the performance suspension on them, you really get beat up, hammered to the ground. Not this thing. This thing is much better in terms of the suspension is very compliant, and you can just cruise right along. Now, what are the things about this car that I don't like? Well, as you can see, there's no radio knobs. This is a heavily touch-based machine, and you have an awful lot that's focused in the purely focused in the steering area, where you have switches, knobs, things. And I've actually finally, after some time, I've finally got it set up the way I like it. And so far, on the right side, as you saw earlier, there's all these adjustments. On the right side, I have the main thing I have it for is how many miles has been driven since it was refueled, and it's now telling me 40 miles. It's interesting, it doesn't have a, it's just per mile, it's not per tenth of a mile. Why? Oh, I got no idea. I got no clue about that. But in a minute it'll hit 41, I hope, unless something weird's going on. There are so many things about this car that vex and confuse me in the terms of the Volkswagen digital cockpit. And look what I got right now. I got the center display is giving me a digital speed. The right-hand display is giving me an analog speed. The left side is giving me a analog tachometer-like device, which is all virtual. And you have some variations you can do, but it's not something that I always wonder about. It seems like the greatest thing in the world when you have a virtual layout like this, that you can pick what you want and put it in there. But I wonder, once people pick what they want, how often they actually change it. and not that that matters really. It's good to be able to change it, unless you sometimes could do it by accident, because you may be searching for a different menu and end up in the particular case of the format here, it's pretty much on. There we go, 41 miles. So it's not going to tell me to a tenth of a mile how far I've gone. It's just going to tell me per mile. Okay, whatever. And they don't think you care about that, because you're too busy driving like a wild man with your 200 and how many horsepower do we have altogether? 241 horsepower. A lot for a 3,200 pound car. And is that the greatest thing? Is it the performance of the drivetrain? The performance of the drivetrain is great, but the ultimate coolness of this car, in my opinion, comes from the fact that it handles so well. Because it does. It handles great. And the ride is balanced. And don't get me wrong, it is firmer than most suspensions, and you can feel bumps in the suspension that you wouldn't feel with some other vehicles. Some other cars that are performance oriented have a little bit better compliance, but it's never, at least so far in my experience with this car, it has never been a punishing ride by any stretch. Oh, I think we have somebody. There we go. They're looking for that driveway. Now they found it. Well done. The Prius C, the small Prius, they don't make them anymore. I don't know why. I don't know why. I guess, somewhere along the line, people decided it didn't matter how much fuel you burn. So it's a whole school of thought that how many years in America the #1 selling vehicle is a full-size pickup. Like everybody needs a pickup truck. No, they don't. But they want one, yes. All right, here's one of my favorite little transitions here. We'll just, woo. Now you can really feel that turbo kick in. It is not a subtle thing. See how quick that shift is? That direct shift is very, very quick. Snick, snick, snick. It is quicker than your manual shifting would be. And it's not quite as... there is a certain delay, let us say, to some automatics. It's not bad. Especially the modern automatic. Conventional automatic transmission has come so far. But the direct shift is fun in its own way. It's very entertaining. And we shall now go down to a transition of turns, which is what this vehicle is made for. It's made for your turns. And where you're sitting back there, there's not a whole lot of room back there for your rear seat passengers. It's acceptable, but if the front seat passengers are tall, you have a problem with leg room. However, you can still bring along your chums for a spirited ride in the forest. And the brakes are wonderful on this because they're delightfully progressive and easy to modulate, which is always nice. Now we're going to just fly around this corner here. Brake here. Off the brakes there. And around this corner. See? Sticks like a stuck-in thing. I like a barnacle to the bow of an old research vessel. There we go. Now, wasn't that fun, children? Did you enjoy that? I hope so. I did. And this is what the GTI is all about, folks. Fun, fun, fun. Energize your commute by being a fun and entertaining ride. The vineyards. May I point out the vineyards? It's peak vineyard time. They'll be picking them grapes pretty soon here. They haven't already started. Okay. Now, one area that I feel like this is, I wish was better, but I understand why it's not, and that's fuel economy. Because you are not likely to get out of the 20s. But right now it's saying the average since refueling is 29.7. That's real close to being out of the 20s and into the 30s, but I would expect a car like this with a little 2-liter engine, which is actually, for compact cars, that's actually a big engine these days, because there's so many running around 1.6s, 1.3s. I haven't seen any 1.8s in a while. That was very popular with Subaru for years, back in the day, long ago. That was their displacement. That was the size engine they put in almost all of their vehicles. Okay. And how are we doing here today on the traffic? Boy, I tell you, this grass has grown. These other plants have grown, and it is definitely affecting visibility. You must be extra cautious. And something else I noticed yesterday is the deer, you see, popped right out in front of me and just stood there. It was a she. She was nice enough to stand out in the road and just stare at me for a minute. So there was no danger of me running into her because she was making her presence known. Some deer will do that, and those are the deer that live a long time. But anyway. Woo! So there is some firmness. There is a bit when you have these transitions from different types of pavement. You can sure feel it. But again, I seem to have a memory in my mind of older GTIs that were a little harsher than this. This one seems to be doing the business really nicely. And how are we on noise? Not bad. Most of the noise, it seems to me, is wind noise. I don't detect a hell of a lot of road noise on this vehicle, which is great. Of the two, wow, that's a tough one. Which do you find more annoying in a cabin that has, let's say, kind of a louder ambiance? Do you find road noise from your tires and everything to be more annoying, or the wind noise? Because it takes a lot to get rid of both. I mean, when I say a lot, I mean money. They have to insulate the car better to get rid of the road noise as far as the doors and everything else. They have to do as much as they can there. Often the selection of the tire can make a big difference in terms of road noise. And on the wind noise side, that's just better glass. Depending on what your manufacturer has available, there's some really amazing new. I bet Volkswagen has a type of glass now. This is definitely Volkswagen glass, but it doesn't say anything like Clarisound or something like. Oh, it would be German. It would be more German, wouldn't it? It would be. What would they call it? Nein noise. I don't know, but anyway, the wind noise on this is very acceptable. And when you consider the fact that there's a lot of room here, there's a lot of headroom because the cabin is fairly tall. You know, here we are underneath our rear suspension of our GTI, and I was almost expecting to see a beam axle back here, just because in some ways I live in the past, because that's what they used to have on the Rabbit and on the later I don't know if the Golf in the United States market. It was called the Golf all over the place, except for the United States, which was called the Rabbit, and it was a much simpler setup. But this is a full multi-link independent rear suspension, and that explains the excellent handling. If you look up in there, you can see our shock. Let's see here. I got my device here. Yes, there's our shock absorber on the outboard position, and there's our coil spring. And there are no drive shafts here, because there are no drive shafts on front wheel drive vehicles on the rear wheels. You see, that's why. But it's your standard setup we see nowadays, with a unibody construction and then a steel subframe where all these wonderful suspension components are bolted in. And there's nothing real overly notably trick about all this, except the fact that it's very well calibrated and very well designed. So it does pretty much do a great job of striking that balance between a comfortable ride and really sure handling, because it's certainly a fun car to hustle about. If you look up further, You can see, this is a weird thing right here. I don't really know what this thing is, but it sure looks like it's almost a cradle for a rear differential for an all-wheel drive system, but I don't think it is, because I don't think this particular, well, who knows? I mean, they'd have to move everything around in order to make that work back here, because as you can see, as you look forward, there is, it's a pretty, compared with a lot of the vehicles I've had lately, this thing is fairly low to the ground. And look at all these, you have all these little shields in here and little protective areas, primarily for aerodynamics more than anything else. But a lot of, well, it's very shiny, this stuff. Look at all this nice, that's pretty amazing. Look at how shiny that is. It's like a mirror. I don't know what's on, there's magical things underneath this car. It's kind of like looking at Hobbiton upside down. But the bottom line here is, it's fairly low to the ground to aid handling. It's got a very, what I would call a taut suspension to aid handling, and yet there's no nasty penalty in the ride department, and that's great. It's another reason over time GTIs have been so popular. That and the fact that you can really, if you so desire, you can really mess with them a lot and get all kinds of additional performance out of them, and they make great little rally cars and that kind of thing. If that's what you're into, this is a great starting point. So there we have our Volkswagen Golf GTI, which has a base price of $36,130, and really there's not a lot of options on this thing, none, except for your delivery charge, which brings it up to $37,225. Your mileage is 24 in the city, 34 on highway, 28 overall. Very nice car overall. I have to say the number one thing about this car that I like is it's just really, really fun to drive, as it's designed to be. And not only that, it's a very practical vehicle in that it takes up very little space, yet has a lot of room in it, and it's very versatile in terms of your cargo capacity. So hey, what's not to like? Very little, actually. It's a really, really terrific little car, and a great alternative to a gigantic crew cab pickup truck. You guys take care out there. We'll talk to you next time. Pick up beer.